Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing, as usual, my round 17, and I'll be going through what happened in round 17 and also be going through my round 8 predictions. Looks like it's going to be an interesting round. That's for sure, could shape the finals. But yeah, let's get straight into the video. So, first game of the round, Melbourne versus Geelong. Yeah, Geelong managed to get the job done quite comfortably at their home deck in the end, and I did tip Melbourne, so I was a little bit unfortunate. My big call was for the Dees to come back after three-quarter time and win, but yeah, they just couldn't come back. They did produce a mini fight back, but yeah, it wasn't very successful. And then the next game was Sydney versus Bulldogs. I was expecting a lot of this game. I was predicting this one to be game of the round. I really thought the Dogs were up for the challenge, and yeah, as soon as I saw Mitch Hannon was back in the side, I thought, yeah, this could go either way. But the Swans, they demolished them in the end, and I don't see the Bulldogs playing finals. Mathematically, they can play finals, but I just don't see them playing finals now. My big call was the Swans to kick 5 or more behinds than goals. Yeah, that didn't happen. They were quite accurate. I think they did kick one more behind than goal though, so not exactly very accurate, but still accurate enough. And then the first game on the Saturday, the one I streamed, Collingwood versus North Melbourne. Well, it certainly wasn't the smashing that we all thought it was. In fact, North Melbourne probably deserved to win that in the end. Their first real good game since the Sydney game, really. And, well, I'm sure David Noble would be happy with his team challenging us and nearly beating us, but we had a big last quarter. My big call was the Pies to kick 4 last quarter goals. That was absolutely spot on. I'm very happy with that. Big call. And then then the other game, this was game of the round, one of the games of the season. Gold Coast pulling off the almighty comeback against Richmond, and the goal after the sign to Noah Anderson. Well done to that young lad, and the composure to do that as well. My big call was for Lynch and Riewoldt to combine for 7 goals. Lynch was out early in the game, and I think Riewoldt kicked like 1 or 2, so that was a big bust. And then the big game on Saturday night, the demolition derby for the Dockers. Well, they just dominated that game from the second half. Nat Fyfe had a massive game, and all their players dominated. They all had a role to play, and St Kilda just fell asleep in the end. My big call, I actually did tip St Kilda too, which isn't very good. My big call was for St Kilda to win disposal count by 50 or more. Well, that was a fail. Fremantle won the disposal count by 10, if you're interested. And then the other game on that night, and a weird type game, Port Adelaide got the job done by 55 points quite convincingly in the end over GWS. My big call was for Wines to collect 30 or more disposals, and he didn't really have as big as tonight as I thought he had. He only had the 21 disposals. Then the next game was Brisbane versus Essendon. Well done to the Bombers. That is very, very good to go over to the Gabba and beat the Lions, even when they're fielding a quarter of their side was a VFL side. Even though that happened, that's still very, very good by Essendon. Kyle Langford, Peter Wright. There's had some players that just dominated. And yeah, they won the game not quite comfortably, but they did win it by more than a goal, so they'd be quite happy with that. And same thing happened last week, and my big call was for Brisbane to win the tackle count by 35 or more. Well, the Bombers won it by like 8 or 9 or something. They were very, very ferocious with their tackles. Then the other game I streamed, Hawthorn versus Adelaide. It wasn't the best game to stream, that's for sure. Hawthorn managed to survive a Crows scare, I guess. They didn't really get it on the scoreboard, but they were very, very good in that second half, Adelaide, and Hawthorn managed to compose themselves late in the fourth quarter, and win the game. My big calls for Hawks to kick four first quarter goals, and I think they kicked 6 or something. That was the highest score in a first quarter for a very long time. And then the last game of the round, I thought it was going to be pretty close, but Carlton absolutely demolished the Eagles. In the end, that first quarter, 34-0. Second quarter, they managed to get like 83 points to 0. They just were completely dominant in those 2 quarters. West Coast did not score in any of those quarters. I think the only real positive in this game for West Coast was JK's 700th career goal, and they celebrated it with a massive loss as usual. Um, I did tip the Blues, but I didn't tip them very comfortably. I tipped them in a thriller, but they did very well. Carlton, and my big calls for Eagles to kick 6 last quarter goals. They didn't even score, so that was an absolute fail. So yeah, I got 5 out of 9 for my tips. Not bad. I probably should have tipped Fremantle in the end, and I was robbed from that Gold Coast Richmond game, I guess you could say. So that probably should have been 7 out of 9. Nothing I can really do about Melbourne Geelong. I was a 50-50 game, and I guess that same goes with the other. I got 2 out of 9 for my big calls, so not very good, but that's what I've been averaging this season, 2 out of 9. So I guess it's not a big deal, I guess. So yeah, let's get straight into my round 18 predictions. So first game on the round on the Friday night, Western Bulldogs versus St Kilda. Right, so St Kilda coming off a humiliating loss. They weren't in the game really for the first half. They were quite good though. We saw some brilliant goals by sidesteps this round, and Sinclair kicked an absolute ripper. I did think the Saints were going to win. I did tip them. I'm not 100% sure or if I should back them in here against the Dogs. And the Dogs, they were just humiliated over at the SCG. They were absolutely dominated. They started really poorly, tried to get back in the game, but just couldn't. By the halfway through the third quarter, it was all over. The Swans had the game done. We also saw a lovely goal sidestepped by Isaac Heaney. We saw a lot this round, and I think the Swans were quite clearly the better side in that game. I'll speak about some of their players soon, but let's speak about some Dogs players. They had a little scare from Norton with a leg injury, and also a concussion protocol to Anthony Scott. Means that they may be without him for a week or maybe even 2 weeks. Who knows? But we should see maybe Josh Bruce returning in this game against his former team too, or maybe next week. We're not 100% sure. I think just because the Dogs have been playing really poorly. I mean, St Kilda played pretty poorly as well. I mean, you look how much Friday night games they get, or Thursday night or Saturday night, even games on Channel 7 at night games. They've had heaps. They've had heaps since the bye round, ever since their bye round. I mean, they had to play Brisbane, and they also had to play Essendon, and then Sydney, Carlton, freo. This is going to be like their 6th in a row, so pressure's on for the Saints to deliver. I'm going to tip the Saints by 10 points. My big call, Dogs to kick 12 or less goals for the game. And if I tip Saints by 10, then that means they're probably going to get like 14 or less goals for the game. I reckon it'll be a low-scoring game. These two teams do like to score, though, so that will make it a bit interesting. Then the first game on the Saturday, I'll stream this game, Adelaide versus Collingwood. Well, Collingwood are surviving a big scare by North Melbourne, and it's not much easier to go over to Adelaide Oval and beat Adelaide. We saw them even beat Richmond over there this season. They've challenged many teams. This could be a danger game for the Pies. I'm tipping it's a danger game for us. We really need to compose ourselves in this game. And Adelaide, well, they're just continuing their really poor form. I think they're now in the bottom 4. They currently sit 15th on the ladder. They just need to win from somewhere just to really silence their critics. I mean, their second half against the Hawks wasn't bad. They just couldn't really capitalise it on the scoreboard. I'm going to tip the Pies in this one. I mean, we had some individual brilliance from Nick Dacos in the last quarter, and Josh Dacos was absolutely huge for us in that game, and we had some big players that needed to lift, like Cameron, and he did lift. And my big call for this game, well, I tip Collingwood by 15 points. My big call, Crows to go goalless for an entire quarter, is my big call. Because we did it to North, I reckon we can do it to the Crows. I'm not 100% sure which quarter though, so I just predicted any quarter. Then the other game on that day, GWS versus Brisbane. It's the rematch of the game that happened quite a long time ago. Now, and the Lions got up just. Could be a bit of a danger game for the Lions travelling over to Manuka, but the Giants They're coming off an absolute shocking game to Port Adelaide, and they count the cost with a lot of injuries in the end to Phil Davis. It looks like a bit of a hamstring blow for him, and Adam Kennedy blow to their defence. Looks like Nick Haynes has been moved back. Now, they've tried this, I think, 3 weeks in a row now, GWS. Nick Haynes has to be moved back to defence. It's just not working for them. And he's too important down there. They need to move him back. Even if Himmelberg stays down there now because of Phil Davis being out and his career could be over. And, well, in the end, they just turned that game into a scrap in that last half. Just defence to defence. GWS's defence was holding up quite strong, but that's because they weren't even trying to get the ball anywhere else but their defence in the end, GWS, and they just were not trying any much. Maybe this isn't quite the role yet for interim coach. They've tried going through the corridor through Mark McVeigh, and we didn't really see much of it. They only kicked the 3 goals. I don't think it's really working for the Giants. I'm tipping Brisbane this game by 21 points. You look at the teams that the Giants are beaten through using their orange tsunami. It's literally just Hawthorn, North Melbourne and West Coast. They're the 3 bottom teams pretty much. They're all teams that are below them. So Brisbane by 21 points. They're yet to take a big scalp. My big call will be Neale and Lyons to combine for 60 touches. They were very, very shocking last game. They were being tagged. Well, Neale was being tagged and Lyons just could not win the ball himself. So they need to have a big game for the Lions. And then the next game, not too much people, I reckon, will be tuning into this game. North Melbourne versus Richmond at I think it's Marvel Stadium. Well, North Melbourne, they're coming off a pretty good game against the Magpies. They deserve to win. It's just that last quarter really cost them, not being able to even score a single... No, they did score a single point. I think they got 1 point themselves in a rush behind. So, yeah, they really, really need to get going and find a way to win. I mean, it is at Marvel Stadium. Bit of a danger game for Richmond. They don't play their best footy at Marvel Stadium, to be honest. I mean, they need a big win coming from somewhere, Richmond. I still don't think North Melbourne are up to the task. I'm tipping Richmond by 68 points. And my big call, North go goalless in the last quarter yet again for a 3rd week in a row. And then the big game on Saturday night. This could be a good game now that we saw Carlton finish off strongly last night. Carlton versus Geelong. What a game this was. What this game is going to be. Geelong coming off a very, very nice win over Melbourne, and Cam Guthrie, that was a sensational goal, by the way. He gets a shout out. Very, very nice play by the Cats. They outsmarted the Dees in the end in that 4th quarter. The Dees were coming, but Geelong managed to hold on to the win, and now they're on top of the table, and they've got one of the easiest fixtures to come home. So they look like a lock for the top 2, Geelong and Carlton. Well, they're coming off a very, very nice, big, healthy, juicy win over West Coast, and one they really needed. They kind of needed some percentage, the Blues. I mean, you look at their percentage out of all the bottom teams, they really, really needed some percentage. And they've gone and found a little bit of percentage, which is good for their sake if they want to make top 4, because they kept their top 4 hopes alive. They sit 5th on the ladder. This is going to be a good game. Mackay and Kerno got rolling. It was a massive game for them, and well, they just dominated that 1st quarter and last quarter in the end, and this one should be a good game. I'm just going to go Geelong, though. It's just a little bit safer to go Geelong. I'm not really brave enough to tip the Blues in an upset, but Geelong by 19 points. But if the Blues get their midfield game going, good luck stopping them. My big call, Blues kick 5 more behinds than goals, kind of costing them the game in the end. Their inaccuracy, they're quite inaccurate in the 3rd quarter against West Coast, and inaccuracy cost them against the Saints fortnight ago now. And Fremantle taking on Sydney, the other game on the night, so they got the 5 games returning for the Saturday night. This one, not sure too much people will be tuning into, but could be a good game. Swans coming off a very nice, big, healthy win over the Dogs, and they'd be looking to continue their run after some inconsistency type form recently, especially losing to the Bombers. You look at their start of the season, they were 5-1. Now you look at the Swans, they do not look as good as they started. I mean, 5-1, that is insane. Now you look at them; they're 10-6. I mean, that's 5-5 in recent weeks. And then the bye, it's not very good. They are a win ahead of Richmond, so I would love to keep that win ahead of Richmond now. The Swans, they sit 7th on the ladder. They very much need a win. Freo kind of need a win as well. I think I'm going to have to tip Freo in this one. I reckon I'll tip them actually quite comfortably in this one. Freo by 27. My big call. Fyfe goes back in the middle and gets 20 plus touches, and he kicks 2 goals, or 2 or more goals. So yeah, I reckon he'll continue his very, very good game last game, because the Dockers, they just ran over the Saints in that second half. Every player was dominant. I love how Rory Lobb dyed his hair for fun pre-game because he was bored. That's quite funny. I reckon it'll be a good game for them. Then the first game on the Sunday, won't be a interesting game really. Hawthorn versus West Coast. We shouldn't really see too much of a big result here. I reckon the Hawks are definitely the better team at the moment. West Coast are in some decent form if you exclude that Carlton game, and Hawthorn, they just need to find a way to get the win in the end. They've won last game, so maybe they can find some form, get their 6th win of the season, and continue their jump up the ladder. And yeah, I'm going to tip Hawthorn in this one. I think everyone should tip Hawthorn. I mean, the Jarman Impey move up forward last week kind of worked. If he kicked 1 goal free, he just needs to work on his accuracy a bit, like Nick Haynes when he went up forward for the Giants. He still is forward. I reckon they've just got to move him back to defence now. But anyways, Mitch Lewis, 5 goals. Early on, it looked like he could kick 10, 11 goals in the game. I think some commentator did tip him to kick 10, 11 goals. Didn't quite happen, though. He didn't have the best second half, but I reckon the Hawks will win this game by 18 points in the end. Not very, very convincingly. In fact, my big call, West Coast choke a 3-quarter time lead. And next, Melbourne versus Port Adelaide up in Darwin. This is going to be a very, very interesting game for sure. Port Adelaide coming off a very, very nice, healthy win over GWS. How good was Connor Rozee? I don't think he's in all-Australian contention, though, just because of his start to the season. I mean, the first 4 games he didn't play in the middle. I just don't think he's been that consistent enough to be in all-Australian form, but he's having a very good season. Zach Butters back from injury is very good, and Jeremy Finlayson, credit to him. He did very, very good against his former side. We haven't seen too much players play very well against their former sides this season. Yeah, I don't think Port Adelaide are quite ready for this win, though. They cannot lose. They cannot afford to lose. Same with Richmond and Gold Coast. These 3 teams are the teams that can't afford to lose. Same with the Dogs, actually. These 4 teams cannot lose. Same with St Kilda, actually. So that's 5 teams that cannot lose this round. I don't think Port Adelaide are going to beat Melbourne, though. Melbourne, their forward line in recent weeks, sure, it's been good against Adelaide and Brisbane, but ever since the Fremantle game, I mean, Freo, they failed. Sydney, they failed. Collingwood, they failed. And now Geelong, they failed. Their forward line just needs to get better. They've got very good players in there. Luke Jackson goes down there. Big Max goes down there. They've got Benny Brown, the key forward. They've got Bailey Fritsch, who kicked 6 goals in a grand final. And you've got Cuzzy Pickett, one of the best small forwards in the game when he's on. I mean, sure, he doesn't have a big game every single game, but he's still a very, very good player to watch. I reckon Melbourne should win this game, but they need to get their forward line kicking because their defence was pretty good against Geelong. I mean, pretty much held up seeming Geelong's inaccuracy. Melbourne by 35 points. And my big call, Port kick 8 or less goals in this game. I reckon they'll find the Darwin conditions pretty hard to score, I reckon. If I'm tipping Melbourne by 35, then they'll probably only get like the 14 goals themselves. I mean, their forward line isn't really going anyway, so I mean that's fair. And then the big game, last game of the round. I'm not sure if I can tip it to be game of the round. In fact, I think I have tipped it to be game of the round actually. Essendon versus Gold Coast. The Bombers. Well, if you exclude the West Coast game, they've knocked over the Saints, Swans and Lions. 3 top 8 teams and 3 teams that have been good for a very, very long time. The Bombers need to keep going low. Kyle Langford's kicked 4 Peter Wright's coming off a 5-goal performance. I mean, you look at Brisbane's defenders that were out for that game. They didn't have Rich. They didn't have Andrews. They didn't have Kadeen Coleman down there. They just had so much defenders out, Brisbane, and their defence really, really lacked composure with those young kids coming in. I still don't really reckon the Bombers are up for the task, though. Gold Coast, though, they have to win this game for finals. They pulled off the greatest win ever against the Bombers, their best win in their history. Well done to them. Marbiot Chol was very, very good against his former team. Spoke about Finlayson being good against his former team. Marbiot Chol was absolutely superb, kicking the 3 goals. Leading goal kicker for the night was Marbiot. And I reckon they've got to get Levi Casbolt rolling, though, in this game. Should be a good game, though. The Suns, they desperately, desperately need a win. They're coming to Marvel Stadium. They haven't played at Marvel for a little while, the Suns. I don't think they've played there since their Saints game back in round 5. But yeah, I'm tipping the Suns. Personally, sorry, Bombers fans. Again, I'm not quite on your same page just yet. I think the Suns should win by 6 points in a close game. I'm a big call. Dons kick 4 or more first quarter goals. I reckon they'll start the game off very, very well. I mean, Richmond had a very good second quarter. I reckon Essendon have a very, very good first quarter. So yeah, that's my round, guys. That's my predictions for the round. Let me guys know what yours are in the comments. And yeah, stay tuned for my next tipping video coming out next week.